Stay with me. Breathe.
The sound echoed through the crystal pavilion like a gunshot. Crack! Alexander Ashford's hand connected with his pregnant wife's face. Victoria stumbled, fell, her hands flying to her 7-month belly. 400 people in designer suits and diamond jewelry froze. Phones lifted to record. Nobody moved to help. Then a voice cut through the silence, rough, steady, dangerous. "Sir, don't touch her again." The janitor in the gray uniform stepped forward, mop forgotten. His eyes locked on the billionaire. Alexander Ashford laughed. The room laughed with him. They had no idea who they were laughing at. They had no idea what was about to happen. They had no idea that this man had already lost everything once and had nothing left to lose. His name was Daniel Rivera. And 5 years ago, he'd made a promise to a woman in a grave. Tonight, he'd finally keep it. Before we begin this story of courage, justice, and one man's refusal to stay silent, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring these powerful stories to life. And please leave a comment telling us what city you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel and connecting with you across the world. Now let's continue with what happened that night. Daniel's hands were still wet from the mop bucket when he knelt beside Victoria Ashford. She was crying, one hand pressed to her reddening cheek, the other curved protectively over her belly. Her mascara ran in black rivers down her face. "Ma'am," Daniel said quietly. His voice the same tone he'd used with wounded soldiers in Kandahar. Calm, steady, safe. "Are you hurt? Can you feel the babies moving?" Victoria looked up at him through tears. I think so. Yes, they're moving." "Good. That's good. Stay still. Don't try to get up yet." Alexander's voice came from above them, sharp and cold. "Get your hands off my wife." Daniel didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge him, just kept his focus on Victoria. "What are their names? Your babies?" We don't have names yet." Her voice shook. "Boy or girl?" "One of each. Twins." "That's beautiful." Daniel's hand hovered near her shoulder, not touching, just present. "I need you to tell me, does anything hurt besides your face, your stomach, your back, anywhere?" "I don't think so. I'm scared. For them. For my babies." Daniel looked up at the crowd. 400 people standing there like statues, like witnesses at an execution who'd decided looking was enough, acting was too much. "Someone call 911, Daniel said. Not a request. A command. The kind that made privates jump. Nobody moved. "Call 911, now." A waiter finally pulled out his phone, hands shaking. Alexander stepped closer. "I said get away from her. This is a private matter." Daniel stood slowly. He was shorter than Alexander by 3 inches, older by 2 years, lighter by 40 pounds. None of it mattered. Something in his eyes, something hard and final, made Alexander take a half step back. "Private matter." Daniel's voice was quiet, deadly quiet. "You hit your pregnant wife in front of 400 people. There's nothing private about it. You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with." Daniel's jaw was tight. "A man who thinks his money makes him untouchable. A man who hurts someone who can't fight back. I've met men like you before. They always think they're special. They're always wrong." Alexander's face went red. "Do you have any idea what I can do to you?" "Do it! After she gets medical attention." Security rushed in then. 2 guards in black suits, earpieces crackling. The bigger one grabbed Daniel's shoulder. "Time to go, buddy." Daniel looked at the hand on his shoulder. "Take your hand off me. You need to leave, now." "I'm leaving after the paramedics check on her and her babies, not before." The second guard moved in, reaching for Daniel's other arm. That was his mistake. Daniel's body moved on instinct. Years of training. Muscle memory. He caught the second guard's wrist, twisted, applied pressure to the nerve cluster. The guard gasped and dropped to one knee. The first guard tried to grab Daniel in a bear hug from behind. Daniel shifted his weight, threw his hip, used the guard's momentum against him. 250 pounds of security guard hit the marble floor with a crash. 3 seconds. Both guards down. The ballroom erupted in shouts and gasps. Phones everywhere now, recording everything. This was going viral, whether anyone wanted it to or not. Alexander's face went from red to purple. "You just assaulted my security. You're finished. I'll have you arrested. I'll sue you for everything you—" "I have nothing," Daniel said flatly. "Sue away." The head of security pushed through the crowd. Tom Chen, 60 years old, former Chicago PD, now in charge of security at the Crystal Pavilion. Daniel had worked the same events as Tom for 3 years. They'd shared coffee during breaks, talked about their daughters, established a mutual respect. Tom took in the scene: Victoria on the floor, crying, Alexander standing over her 2 guards, groaning. Daniel standing calm and centered. "What happened here?" Tom asked. "He attacked my security." Alexander pointed at Daniel. "Arrest him." "Mr. Ashford, I watched the whole thing on the security feed. Your guards grabbed him first. He defended himself." Tom looked at Victoria. "Ma'am, did your husband strike you?" Victoria's eyes went wide with fear. Her mouth opened, closed. The words wouldn't come. Daniel spoke instead. "Yes, he slapped her. Hard. She fell. There are 400 witnesses." "That's a lie." Alexander's voice pitched higher. "She tripped. She's clumsy, always has been." "I watched it happen," Daniel said. "So did everyone here. So did the security cameras." Tom nodded slowly. "Mr. Ashford, I'm going to need you to step back. Paramedics are on their way. Ma'am, do you want to press charges?" Victoria looked at Alexander. Fear etched in every line of her face. Then she looked at Daniel. Something in his steady gaze seemed to give her strength. "Yes," she whispered. Then louder, "Yes, I want to press charges." Alexander laughed. Actually laughed. "You're going to regret this, Victoria. You have no idea what you just started." "Sir, you need to stop talking," Tom said firmly. "You're making threats in front of witnesses." "I don't need to make threats. She knows what happens if she crosses me." Victoria flinched. Daniel saw it. Saw the way her whole body tensed, the way her hands instinctively covered her belly, the way she looked at Alexander like he was a bomb about to explode. Daniel had seen that look before. Elena had worn it in the first months they'd dated, before she'd learned to trust that he was different. Before she'd believed she was safe. But Elena hadn't been safe. Not really. Not in the end. The memory flashed police at his door. "Mr. Rivera, we need you to come identify a body." The morgue. Elena's face peaceful and wrong. The bruises on her neck. The detective's voice. "Her ex-boyfriend, Ricardo Santos. We have him in custody." Daniel shook the memory away. Not now. Focus on now. Sirens wailed outside. Paramedics rushed in with a stretcher and medical bags. They knelt beside Victoria, checking her vitals, her baby's heartbeats, her injuries. "Ma'am, we need to transport you to Northwestern Memorial. Possible placental abruption from the fall. We need to monitor the babies." "No," Victoria said immediately. "No, I'm fine. I can go home." "Ma'am, you fell while 7 months pregnant with twins. Hospital, now." Alexander stepped forward. "I'll ride with her." Victoria screamed. Actually screamed. "No, don't let him near me, please." The paramedics exchanged glances. One of them, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, spoke gently. "Ma'am, you have the right to refuse anyone's presence. Who do you want with you?" Victoria looked around wildly. Her eyes landed on Daniel. "Him, the janitor, please." Daniel's stomach dropped. "Ma'am, I'm not family." "Please." Her voice broke. "I don't have anyone else. My family, he cut me off from them. My friends, he drove them all away. I have nobody. Please don't leave me alone with him." Daniel looked at Alexander, then at Tom, then back at Victoria. "Okay," he said quietly. "I'll ride with you." Alexander exploded. "Absolutely not. That's my wife. Those are my children. You have no right." "She just refused your presence," Tom interrupted. "That's her legal right. Now back off before I have you removed from the premises." "Do you know who I am?" "I know exactly who you are, Mr. Ashford. And right now I'm watching you threaten and intimidate a pregnant woman who just accused you of assault. So I suggest you stop talking and call your lawyer." The paramedics loaded Victoria onto the stretcher. Daniel followed them to the ambulance, very aware of 400 pairs of eyes on him, very aware of the phones still recording, very aware that his life had just changed completely. In the ambulance, Victoria held his hand like a lifeline. The female paramedic worked quickly, checking blood pressure, baby heartbeats, looking for signs of trauma. "Baby's heart rates are good," the paramedic said. 142 and 138. That's normal. But we still need to get you checked at the hospital." Victoria nodded, tears still streaming. She looked at Daniel. "What's your name?" "Daniel Rivera." "I'm Victoria. Victoria Ashford." She said her married name like it tasted bitter. "Thank you for not walking away." Everyone else just stood there. Everyone. They were scared, Daniel said, though it wasn't an excuse. "You weren't scared." "I was terrified." The honesty surprised him. "But I couldn't not do something." "Why?" "You don't know me. You just lost your job. He's going to sue you, ruin you." "Let him try." Daniel's voice was hard. "Some things are worth fighting for." "What things?" Daniel thought about Elena, about arriving home from deployment to find police cars in his driveway, about his daughters' faces when he told them Mommy wasn't coming home, about the promise he'd made at Elena's grave. "I failed you. I wasn't there when you needed me. I'll never make that mistake again." "The things I couldn't protect before," he said quietly. Victoria studied his face. "You lost someone." It wasn't a question. Daniel nodded. "My wife, 5 years ago. Her ex-boyfriend. Domestic violence. She had protection orders, police reports, everything. None of it stopped him." His voice roughened. "He killed her in a parking garage while I was deployed overseas. Left my 2 daughters without a mother." Victoria's hand tightened on his. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Just be strong enough to press charges and mean it. He'll destroy me. He'll try. But you have something he doesn't." "What?" "The truth. And 400 witnesses. And security footage. And a man who just made it very clear he's willing to testify." "Why would you do that? You'll lose everything." "I already lost everything that mattered," Daniel said. "Now I just have my daughters and my conscience won't let me walk away from this." They arrived at Northwestern Memorial. Emergency room staff rushed Victoria inside. Daniel tried to stay in the waiting room, but Victoria refused to let go of his hand. "Please," she whispered. "Don't leave me alone. What if he comes? What if—" "I'm not leaving," Daniel said firmly. "I promise." The doctors examined her in a private room while Daniel waited in the hallway. Tom showed up 20 minutes later with Daniel's jacket and phone. "You're fired," Tom said without preamble. "Corporate called. Ashford's lawyers already made threats. I fought it, but I don't have a choice." "I understand." "No, you don't." Tom leaned against the wall. "I've worked security for 15 years. I've seen shit you wouldn't believe. Rich people think they're untouchable, and most of the time they're right. The system protects them. Not this time." "You sound sure." "I am sure. 400 people saw it. It's on camera. She's pressing charges. What's he going to do?" Tom laughed bitterly. "Everything. He'll sue you civilly. He'll pressure prosecutors. He'll smear her as unstable. He'll claim you attacked him. He'll use every dirty trick in the book. Then I'll fight back." "With what?" "You just lost your job. You have 2 kids. You can't afford lawyers. I don't need lawyers. I need to tell the truth. Tom shook his head. Truth doesn't always win, Rivera. Money wins. Power wins. Not this time, Daniel said again, though he wasn't sure he believed it. His phone buzzed. Text from Maya. Dad, where are you? It's 1 a.m. Guilt hit him like a fist. His daughters. Alone. Worried. He texted back. Something came up at work. Emergency. Stay with Mrs. Chen tonight. I'll explain tomorrow. Maya. Are you okay? I'm okay. I promise. Love you both. 2 hours passed. Daniel dozed in the waiting room chair, his body aching from the confrontation with security. At 3:47 a.m., a doctor emerged. Mr. Rivera. Daniel stood. How is she? Babies are stable. No signs of placental abruption. Fetal heart rate's normal. Mrs. Ashford has contusions and soft tissue swelling on her face and jaw, but no fractures. Physically, she'll be fine. And emotionally? The doctor's face tightened. Traumatized. Terrified. She told me this isn't the first time her husband has been violent. She's been documenting abuse for over a year. Daniel's hands clenched. Over a year? She has videos, audio recordings, photos of injuries, a journal. She's been building a case but was too scared to use it. The doctor paused. Until tonight. She says you gave her courage to finally fight back. Can I see her? She's asking for you. Daniel followed the doctor to Victoria's room. She lay in the hospital bed, monitors beeping softly. Her right cheek was swollen and purple. But when she saw Daniel, relief flooded her face. You stayed. I said I would. She started crying again. I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry you got dragged into this. Stop apologizing. You didn't do anything wrong. He's going to destroy you, your job, your reputation. I don't care. You should care. You have daughters. What if he goes after them? What if... Victoria. Daniel's voice was firm. Listen to me. I made a promise 5 years ago standing at my wife's grave. I promised I would never look away again. Never let fear keep me silent. Never let another woman suffer alone. I broke that promise for 5 years. I stayed invisible, stayed safe, stayed quiet. His voice roughed. Not anymore. Victoria stared at him. You're really going to testify? Yes. Even though he'll sue you, even though you'll lose everything. I already told you I have nothing to lose except my conscience, and I'm not losing that again. Why? The question came out desperate. Why do you care? You don't even know me. Daniel pulled the chain from under his shirt. Elena's wedding ring dangled on the end, catching the fluorescent light. 5 years ago, my wife was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. She'd left him 3 years earlier. Testified against him. Got him convicted. He served 18 months and got out early for good behavior. Daniel's voice was hollow. She had protection orders. She'd called police 3 times. She'd gone to court twice. None of it stopped him. Daniel. I was deployed. She called me 2 weeks before it happened. Said she was scared. Said Ricardo was following her. I told her to file another police report. I told her I'd be home in 6 weeks. I told her everything would be okay. He met Victoria's eyes. It wasn't okay. He found her in her office parking garage, beat her to death while she begged him to stop. Security cameras caught everything. Victoria's hand went to her mouth. By the time I flew home, Elena was in the morgue. By the time I processed out of the army, Ricardo was claiming it was a crime of passion that she'd provoked him, that he'd snapped. His lawyer painted her as unstable, hysterical, vindictive, made her the villain in her own murder. What happened to him? Plea deal, manslaughter, 7 years. He'll be out in 5 with good behavior. Daniel's laugh was bitter. The system protected him, like it protects all of them, the abusers, the men who hurt women and then convince everyone the women deserved it. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, be brave. You have something Elena didn't witness, video, a chance to stop him before he kills you. Victoria's face went white. You think he would? Yes. Daniel's voice was flat, certain. Domestic violence escalates. It never gets better, only worse. Tonight he hit you in public. Next time there won't be witnesses. Next time you might not survive. The babies. Need you to be strong. Need you to fight. Need you to press charges and mean it. A knock at the door. A woman in a police uniform entered. Detective Lisa Martinez, Domestic Violence Unit. Mrs. Ashford, I'm Detective Martinez. I need to ask you some questions about tonight's incident. Victoria's face went pale. I already told the officers. I know, but we need a formal statement. Video evidence, medical records, everything we can get to build a case. What if I don't want to press charges? Daniel stood to leave. Give them privacy. Victoria grabbed his hand. Stay, please. Detective Martinez pulled up a chair. Mrs. Ashford, I've worked domestic violence for 14 years. I know you're scared. I know he's threatened you. I know you think dropping charges is safer, but it's not. He has lawyers, money, power. He'll make me look crazy. He'll try, but this time you have something most victims don't. Martinez gestured to Daniel. A credible witness who's willing to testify. Security footage from multiple angles. 400 witnesses who saw him hit you. Medical evidence of injury. And... She paused. I'm guessing you have your own evidence, too. Victoria froze. What do you mean? Most long-term domestic violence victims document their abuse. Photos, videos, journals. Just in case they ever get brave enough to leave. Silence. Then Victoria whispered, How did you know? Because I've done this for 14 years. And because I saw how you reacted when your husband tried to approach you. That wasn't fear of one slap. That was fear built over years of abuse. Victoria looked at Daniel, then at Martinez, then at her hands. I have videos, she said quietly. Audio recordings, photos, medical records. 18 months of documentation. Martinez leaned forward. Where is it? Cloud storage. Password protected. I've been waiting for... I don't know what I was waiting for. The right moment. The courage. She looked at Daniel again. Then he stepped in. And I realized, if a stranger is willing to risk everything to protect me, I should be willing to risk everything to protect myself. Can you access those files? Martinez asked. Yes. Do you give me permission to review them and use them as evidence? Victoria's hands shook. If I do this, if I give you everything, can you promise me he goes to jail? No, Martinez said honestly. I can't promise anything, but I can promise I'll fight like hell to make sure he faces consequences. Victoria nodded slowly. That's enough. She pulled out her phone, logged into a cloud account, and started pulling up files. Martinez's face went harder with each video she watched. Alexander screaming at Victoria while she was 4 months pregnant. Alexander throwing a glass that shattered inches from her head. Alexander grabbing her throat, cutting off her air, whispering, I could kill you right now, and nobody would stop me. Audio recordings of threats. If you ever leave me, I'll take the babies. You'll never see them. I own the best lawyers in this city. You'll end up with nothing. Photos of bruises hidden under makeup. Hospital records from 3 separate falls. And the worst emails to Victoria's family. Your daughter is mentally unstable. She's making up stories about me. I'm trying to help her, but she needs space from you. Please don't contact her for a while. Systematically isolating her. Cutting her off from everyone who might help. Martinez finished reviewing everything. Her jaw was tight. Mrs. Ashford, this is one of the most comprehensive abuse documentations I've seen. Why didn't you come forward before? I tried. 6 months ago. Went to a precinct. Filed a report. Victoria's voice was hollow. 2 hours later, Alexander's lawyer showed up. They made the report disappear. Alexander donated $50,000 to the police benevolent fund the next day. Jesus, Martinez muttered. That's when I knew I needed something bigger, something so public he couldn't make it go away. Victoria looked at Daniel. Then you gave me that. You made it impossible for everyone to ignore. Daniel's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Mr. Rivera, this is Patricia Wong, attorney for Victoria Ashford. Or she will be if she'll have me. I'm calling because I saw the video. It's gone viral, 10 million views in 3 hours, and I want to help. Daniel looked at Victoria, who nodded. Hold on, I'll put you on speaker. Patricia's voice filled the room, sharp and determined. Mrs. Ashford, my firm specializes in domestic violence cases, high-profile cases, cases where wealthy abusers think they're untouchable. I want to represent you, pro bono. And I want to make Alexander Ashford an example of what happens when you think money makes you above the law. Victoria's eyes widened. Pro bono. Why? Because I watched that video 20 times. I watched 400 people stand there with their phones out recording, and not one of them helped, except a janitor who had nothing to gain and everything to lose. That kind of courage deserves support. What about Mr. Rivera? He's going to need a lawyer too. Already handled. My partner will represent him. Also pro bono. Alexander Ashford is going to sue him for everything he can think of. We'll fight it all. Daniel's throat closed. Why would you do that? Because 15 years ago, I was in an abusive marriage. My ex-husband was a partner at a major law firm. Rich, connected, powerful. Everyone told me I'd never win. That I should just leave quietly and be grateful he'd let me go. Patricia's voice hardened. I fought anyway. I won. And I've spent the last 15 years making sure other women can win too. Victoria was crying. What do I need to do? First, press charges. Full stop. No backing down. Detective Martinez will help with that. Second, file for divorce and full custody. Third, get a restraining order. Fourth, let me worry about the legal strategy. You focus on staying safe and taking care of those babies. After Patricia hung up, Victoria looked at Daniel with something like awe. You changed everything. You know that in one night you changed my entire life. You changed it, Daniel corrected. You decided to be brave. You decided to fight. I just didn't look away. Most people do look away. I know. I was one of them for 5 years. He stood suddenly exhausted. I need to get home to my daughters. They're probably terrified. But I'll testify. Whenever you need me. Whatever you need me to say. Thank you. The words were inadequate for what he'd done, but they were all she had. Daniel left the hospital as dawn broke over Chicago. His phone exploded with notifications. Texts, calls, messages from numbers he didn't recognize. He pulled up the video that everyone was talking about. There he was, stepping forward, telling Alexander Ashford, "Don't touch her again." The moment was frozen in time, going viral, becoming a symbol. The comments were overwhelming. This man is a hero. Janitor shows more courage than 400 rich people. Where can we donate to support him? Alexander Ashford should be in prison. But also, he assaulted security guards. He interfered in a marriage. He's going to get sued into oblivion. Who does he think he is? Daniel closed the app. He didn't care what people thought. He cared about getting home to his daughters. He took the bus. His car had died 2 months ago, and he hadn't been able to afford the repairs, and climbed the 3 flights to his apartment. Mrs. Chen, his elderly neighbor, opened her door. Daniel, the girls have been so worried they saw the news. I know. Thank you for staying with them. I'll take them now. Maya and Sophie were awake, sitting on Mrs. Chen's couch, eyes glued to a tablet. They looked up when Daniel entered. Maya's eyes were red from crying. Dad! They ran to him. He hugged them both, breathing in their shampoo smell, feeling their solid realness. I'm okay. I'm here. I'm sorry I scared you. Dad, everyone's saying you attacked someone. Maya's voice shook. They're saying you're going to jail. I'm not going to jail. I helped someone who needed help, that's all. The pregnant lady, Sophie asked. Yes. Did you really hit those men? They grabbed me first. I defended myself. Maya pulled back, studying his face with her too old for 12 eyes. It was like Mom, wasn't it? The pregnant lady reminded you of Mom. Daniel's chest constricted. Yes. That's why you couldn't walk away. Yes. Sophie hugged him tighter. You're a hero, Daddy. I'm not a hero, baby. I'm just a man who couldn't stay silent. But Maya shook her head. Mom would be proud. Those 4 words broke something in Daniel. He pulled both girls close and let himself cry for the first time in 5 years. Not for Elena, he'd cried for her plenty. For himself. For the man he'd been who'd failed to protect his wife. For the man he'd become who'd finally found the courage to protect someone else. And for Victoria Ashford, who'd been alone and terrified until a stranger decided she was worth fighting for. Outside, the sun rose over Chicago. The video kept spreading. The story kept growing. And Daniel Rivera, former Army Ranger, current janitor, invisible man, became very, very visible. He had no idea what came next. But for the first time in 5 years, he felt like he'd done something Elena would be proud of. And that was enough. Daniel woke up 4 hours later to his phone vibrating nonstop. 53 missed calls. 147 text messages. His apartment building lobby was full of reporters. Maya stood at the window peeking through the blinds. Dad, they're still down there. They've been there since 7 a.m. Mrs. Chen says they knocked on her door asking about you. Sophie sat on the couch, tablet in hand, scrolling through something. Her face was pale. Daddy, people are saying mean things about you online. Daniel crossed the room, sat beside her. What kind of things? That you're violent, that you attacked those security men, that you're trying to be famous. Her voice got smaller. That you're a bad dad for leaving us alone to help a stranger. The words hit harder than Alexander's guards had. Daniel pulled Sophie close. Baby, I'm not trying to be famous. I helped someone who needed help, that's all. But they're saying, they don't know me. They don't know what happened. They just see a video and make up stories. Maya turned from the window. So tell them the truth. I did. I gave a statement to the police, that's enough. It's not enough. Maya's voice rose, frustrated and scared. They're saying terrible things and you're just letting them... Daniel's phone rang again. Unknown number. He almost declined, but something made him answer. Mr. Rivera, this is Melissa Carter from Good Morning Chicago. We'd like to invite you on our show tomorrow to tell your side of the story. No, thank you. Mr. Rivera, the narrative is being controlled by Alexander Ashford's PR team. They're painting you as unstable, violent, a vigilante. Don't you want to defend yourself? I don't need to defend doing the right thing. They're saying you assaulted security guards unprovoked, that you interfered in a private marriage, that you're exploiting Mrs. Ashford's situation for attention. Daniel's jaw tightened. I'm not interested in being on television. Then let them win. Let them make you the villain while Alexander Ashford walks free. Melissa's voice softened. Mr. Rivera, I've worked in news for 15 years. I know a setup when I see one. Your silence is being used against you. My silence is my choice. Is it? Or are you staying silent because you're scared? Because that's exactly what men like Alexander Ashford count on. That good people will be too afraid to fight back. The words stung because they were partially true. Daniel hung up without responding. Another call immediately. Patricia Wong this time. Daniel, we need to talk. Now. Can I come to your apartment? There are reporters everywhere. I know, I'll handle them. Buzz me up when I arrive. 20 minutes later, Patricia Wong stood in Daniel's small living room. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, wearing a power suit that probably cost more than Daniel's monthly rent. She had a briefcase and a tablet and an energy that filled the room. "You've been served," she said without preamble, handing him papers. Daniel's stomach dropped. Already? Alexander Ashford doesn't waste time. He's suing you for assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, defamation, and interference with marital relations. He's asking for $10 million in damages. Sophie gasped. Maya grabbed Daniel's arm. "I don't have $10 million, Daniel said flatly. He knows that. The lawsuit isn't about money. It's about intimidation. Making an example of you. Scaring Victoria into dropping charges. Scaring anyone else who might think about standing up to him. Can he win? No, but he can make the process hell. Depositions, discovery, court dates, legal fees, even though I'm representing you pro bono. Years of your life eaten up by this." Patricia set down her briefcase. "Unless we fight back hard and fast." "How?" "By going public, by telling your story, by making you sympathetic instead of letting his PR team paint you as a violent opportunist. I don't want to be famous. Fame isn't the goal. Protection is." Patricia pulled up something on her tablet. "Look at this." It was a news article. Janitor with history of violence assaults billionaire security team. Daniel's hands clenched. "History of violence I've never—" "They're using your military service, twisting it, making it sound like you're PTSD-ridden and dangerous. They found out about Elena's death. They're implying you're projecting trauma onto Victoria Ashford, that you're unstable, that you shouldn't be around your own children. That's a lie. I know, but lies spread faster than truth. We need to get ahead of this." Another call. This time from a number Daniel recognized. Child Protective Services. His blood went cold. He answered on speaker. "Mr. Rivera, this is Catherine Mills from Child Protective Services. We've received a report of potential neglect regarding your daughters. We need to conduct a home visit within 48 hours. Maya's face went white. Sophie started crying. "What report?" Daniel's voice was steady, but his hands shook. "An anonymous tip that your children are left unsupervised while you work night shifts. That you put them at risk by involving yourself in dangerous situations. That your apartment may be unsuitable for minors." "That's absurd. My daughters are with a neighbor when I work. They're safe, fed, cared for." "I'm sure they are, Mr. Rivera, but we're required to follow up on all reports. I'll be by tomorrow at 10 a.m. She hung up. Daniel stared at the phone. Patricia's face was grim. "He's going after your daughters now, trying to take them away." "He can't." "He can try, and with his money and lawyers, he can make your life hell even if he doesn't succeed." Patricia leaned forward. "Daniel, you need to understand something. Alexander Ashford doesn't fight fair. He fights to destroy. He'll use every dirty trick, every connection, every dollar to make you regret standing up to him. So what do? You fight back. You go on television. You tell your story, Elena, your daughters, why you couldn't walk away. You make yourself human, sympathetic, someone people want to protect instead of destroy." Daniel looked at Maya and Sophie, both terrified, both looking to him for answers. "If I go public, they'll dig into everything. Elena's death, my military record, our finances. They'll make my daughters' lives hell." "They're already doing that," Patricia said quietly. "The only question is whether you fight back or let them win." Maya spoke up, her voice small but determined. "Mom would want you to fight." Daniel looked at his daughter. 12 years old and already so strong, so much like Elena. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll do the interview." Patricia nodded. "Good. I'll set it up for tomorrow afternoon, after the CPS visit. We'll show them you're a good father first, then we'll tell the world why you're a good man." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He paced the apartment, checked on his sleeping daughters 3 times, stared at Elena's photo on his bedside table. "I'm sorry," he whispered to her picture. "I'm dragging the girls into this mess, but I couldn't walk away. You understand, right?" Elena smiled back from the photo frozen at 32, forever young, forever gone. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. I saw the news. I'm so sorry about what he's doing to you. If you want to back out, I understand. Daniel typed, I'm not backing out. Victoria. He's going to destroy you. Daniel. He's going to try. There's a difference. Victoria. Why are you doing this? Daniel thought about that. Really thought about it. Why was he willing to lose everything, his job, his reputation, possibly his daughters? He typed, because 5 years ago nobody fought for my wife. The system failed her. Her friends stayed quiet. Her co-workers looked away. Everyone was too scared or too comfortable to help. She died alone and terrified. If I walk away from you, I'm no better than the people who walked away from her. Long pause. Then, your wife was lucky to have you. Daniel stared at that message. No, Elena wasn't lucky. Lucky people don't get beaten to death in parking garages. Lucky people don't die while their husband is overseas. Lucky people survive. But maybe Victoria could be lucky. Maybe this time the story could end differently. He texted back, get some rest. Tomorrow we start fighting back. The next morning, Catherine Mills from CPS arrived exactly at 10 a.m. She was in her 50s, professional, tired-looking. She carried a clipboard and wore the expression of someone who'd seen too much. Mr. Rivera, may I come in? Daniel had spent 2 hours cleaning the apartment. Making sure beds were made, dishes done, food in the fridge, homework visible on the kitchen table. Everything that said good parent. Maya and Sophie sat on the couch, nervous but polite. Catherine walked through, slowly checking rooms, asking questions. Where do the girls sleep? They share a room. Maya has the top bunk, Sophie the bottom. And you? I sleep on the couch most nights. The bedroom is theirs. Most nights. When I work night shifts, I sleep after I get them to school. Otherwise, I'm on the couch. Catherine made notes. And who watches them during your night shifts? Mrs. Chen, my neighbor. She's retired. Former elementary school teacher. She's been helping me for 3 years. Can I speak with Mrs. Chen? Of course. Catherine interviewed Mrs. Chen for 20 minutes. Then she returned and interviewed Maya and Sophie separately. Daniel waited in the hallway, heart hammering. Finally, Catherine called him back in. Mr. Rivera, your daughters are well cared for. The apartment is clean and safe. Mrs. Chen is clearly a responsible caregiver. Your daughters speak highly of you and show no signs of neglect or abuse. Daniel's shoulders sagged with relief. However, Catherine continued, I'm concerned about the current situation, the media attention, the lawsuit, the stress this is putting on your family. I didn't ask for any of this. No, but you chose to involve yourself in a situation that's now affecting your daughter's well-being. Maya told me she's been bullied at school, called names because of the video. Sophie said she's scared reporters will hurt you. I'm handling it. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your decision to intervene in someone else's marriage is now jeopardizing your children's stability. Daniel's hands clenched. I intervened because a man hit his pregnant wife. Would you have preferred I looked away? I would have preferred you called 911 and let professionals handle it. I did call 911, while making sure she didn't die before they arrived. Catherine sighed. Mr. Rivera, I'm not your enemy. I'm closing this case. No violations found. But I'm advising you strongly to consider what's best for your daughters. Sometimes being a hero means knowing when to step back. After she left, Maya hugged Daniel fiercely. She's wrong. You did the right thing. Even if it hurts you. Especially then. Mom always said doing right is harder than doing easy. But we do hard things because they matter. Daniel held his daughter and marveled at her strength. At 12, she understood something many adults never learned. That afternoon, Daniel sat in a television studio across from Melissa Carter. Bright lights, cameras, a small microphone clipped to his shirt. Patricia sat off camera, ready to intervene if needed. Melissa's smile was professional and warm. Mr. Rivera, thank you for joining us. Let's start with what happened that night at the Crystal Pavilion. Daniel took a breath. I was working. Janitorial staff. I saw a man hit his pregnant wife. She fell. I intervened. Some people say you assaulted security guards. They grabbed me first. I defended myself. You're former military, Army Ranger, combat experience. Some might say that makes you dangerous in civilian situations. My training taught me to protect people who can't protect themselves. That's exactly what I did. But wasn't it reckless? You have 2 daughters. You lost your job. You're being sued. Was it worth it? Daniel met her eyes. 5 years ago, my wife Elena was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. Domestic violence. She had protection orders, police reports, court appearances. None of it saved her. He killed her in a parking garage while I was deployed overseas. Melissa's professional mask slipped slightly. Real emotion crossed her face. My daughters grew up without a mother because nobody was willing to truly intervene. Everyone followed procedures, filed paperwork, but nobody actually stopped him. Daniel's voice roughened. So when I saw Victoria Ashford on the ground crying, holding her pregnant belly, and 400 people just stood there filming, I couldn't be another person who did nothing. What do you say to people who claim you're exploiting this situation? I say they've never held their children while telling them their mother is dead. They've never failed someone they loved. They've never lived with the knowledge that if just one person had been brave enough to truly help their wife, might still be alive. Alexander Ashford's lawyers claim this is a vendetta, that you're projecting your trauma onto his wife. Alexander Ashford hit his pregnant wife in front of hundreds of witnesses. That's not my trauma, that's his crime. He's suing you for $10 million. I don't have $10 million. I worked as a janitor. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my daughters. If he wins, he gets nothing but the satisfaction of destroying someone for doing the right thing. Melissa leaned forward. What do you want people to know? Daniel thought about that. What did he want people to know? I want them to know that domestic violence doesn't just happen in poor neighborhoods or to uneducated people. It happens in penthouses, at charity galas, in marriages where the abuser has money and power and connections. And it continues because people look away. They tell themselves it's not their business. They film it for social media, but don't actually help. He looked directly at the camera. I want people to know that if you see someone being hurt, call 911. Don't just record it. Don't just share it. Act. Intervene safely. Be a witness who does something. Because the person being hurt might not survive long enough for you to decide it's your problem. The interview aired that evening. Within hours, the narrative began shifting. Comments poured in. This man lost his wife and is trying to save someone else's. That's heroism. The fact that he's being sued for helping someone is disgusting. Alexander Ashford should be in jail, not suing his victim's defender. But also, he's still a vigilante. The legal system should handle this, not random janitors. What about his daughters? Is this really helping them? That night, Daniel's phone rang. Private number. Mr. Rivera. The voice was cold, smooth, confident. Alexander Ashford. I watched your little interview. Very touching. The dead wife. The traumatized children. Well played. Daniel's blood went cold. How did you get this number? I get anything I want, Mr. Rivera. Numbers, addresses, private information. It's amazing what money can buy. What do you want? I want you to drop your support of my wife. Refuse to testify. Sign a statement saying you misunderstood what you saw. In return, I'll drop the lawsuit and donate $50,000 to a charity of your choice. Consider it compensation for your trouble. No. You haven't heard the whole offer. If you refuse, I'll make sure your daughters' lives are hell. I'll ensure Maya never gets into a decent college. I'll make sure Sophie's school knows about her unstable father. I'll have CPS visit weekly. I'll make you regret every moment of every day. Daniel's hands shook with rage. You stay away from my daughters. Then stay away from my wife. This is your only warning, Mr. Rivera. Take the money, sign the paper, or watch everything you love get destroyed." The line went dead. Daniel immediately called Patricia, told her about the threat. "He's trying to intimidate you," she said. "Record everything, save every message. This is witness tampering." Threatening. What if he actually hurts my girls? He won't. Too public. Too risky. He's bluffing. What if he's not? Silence. Then we move faster. We press charges harder. We make him untouchable before he can touch you. But that night, Daniel didn't sleep. He sat in his daughter's doorway, watching them breathe, wondering what he'd unleashed by refusing to look away. His phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. "Check your email." Daniel opened his email. One new message, no sender name. The subject line, "You should see this." He clicked it open. His stomach dropped. Photos. Of Maya leaving school. Of Sophie at the playground. Of Mrs. Chen walking them home. Timestamps from today. All taken from a distance. Surveillance. The message, "I told you. I can get anything I want, including your daughters. Last chance. Take the deal." Daniel's vision tunneled. His hands shook. Every instinct screamed to protect his children, to take the money, to back down. He looked at Elena's photo. Thought about her final moments. Alone. Terrified. Nobody coming to help. Then he looked at his sleeping daughters. Thought about the world he was leaving them. A world where men like Alexander Ashford win, because good people are too scared to fight. He deleted the email, blocked the number, made a decision. He wasn't backing down. Not for money, not for threats, not for anything. Tomorrow he'd file a police report about the threats. He'd get a restraining order. He'd move his daughters to a safer location if necessary. He'd do whatever it took. But he wouldn't abandon Victoria Ashford. He wouldn't let Alexander win. He wouldn't dishonor Elena's memory by becoming another person who looked away. Because sometimes doing the right thing means risking everything. And sometimes that's the only choice that matters. His phone buzzed again. This time, Victoria. "Daniel, don't give up. Please. I filed for divorce today. I'm moving forward. If you back down now, I don't know if I'll have the courage to continue." Daniel typed back, "I'm not backing down. Ever. We're seeing this through together." Victoria. "Even though he's threatening your daughters." Daniel looked at Maya and Sophie again. Both peaceful. Both trusting their father to protect them. Both deserving of a world where violence has consequences. "Especially because he's threatening my daughters," Daniel typed. "They need to see that standing up to bullies matters. That we don't negotiate with people who use fear as a weapon. That doing right is worth fighting for, Victoria. Thank you for everything. You're the first person in 3 years who's treated me like I'm worth saving. Daniel, you are worth saving. Don't ever doubt that." He set down his phone. Tomorrow would bring more threats, more attacks, more consequences. But tonight he'd kept a promise. To Elena, to himself, to his daughters. He'd chosen courage over comfort, truth over safety, justice over surrender. And that he thought was how you teach children what really matters. The police report about Alexander's threats took 45 minutes to file. The detective, a heavy-set man named Rodriguez, who looked like he'd seen everything, listened without interrupting. When Daniel finished, Rodriguez set down his pen. "Mr. Rivera, I'm going to be honest with you. Alexander Ashford has connections, judges, lawyers, people who owe him favors. This investigation is going to be uphill. So I should just let him threaten my daughters." "I didn't say that. I'm saying be prepared for pushback, for delays, for his lawyers claiming the photos were taken by paparazzi, that the phone call never happened, that you're making it up for publicity." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I'm not making anything up. I believe you. But belief doesn't always translate to prosecution." Rodriguez leaned back. However, what happened at the gala, that's different. We have video, witnesses, medical evidence. Detective Martinez is building a solid case. If we can get him on the assault charge, everything else becomes easier. When? District Attorney is reviewing the case now. Should have a decision within 48 hours. Daniel left the station feeling like he'd accomplished nothing. His phone buzzed immediately. Patricia. We need to meet. Now. Victoria's attorney's office. Something's happened. Daniel's stomach dropped. Is she okay? The babies. She's fine. Just get here. He took 2 buses across Chicago, arrived at Patricia's high-rise office building 40 minutes later. Victoria sat in the conference room looking exhausted but determined. Her face was still bruised, fading to yellow-green now. She was 7 months pregnant and looked like she was carrying the weight of the world. Patricia didn't waste time. 3 women came forward this morning, all ex-girlfriends of Alexander, all with stories of abuse. Daniel sat down hard. 3. And there may be more. Patricia pulled up files on her laptop. Woman number 1, Sarah Chen. Dated Alexander 6 years ago. He broke her wrist. She filed a police report. It disappeared. He paid her $50,000 to sign an NDA. Victoria's hand went to her mouth. Woman number 2, Jennifer Martinez. Dated him 4 years ago. He put her in the hospital with a concussion. Claimed she fell. Paid her $75,000 and an NDA. Jesus. Daniel breathed. Woman number 3, Rachel Thompson. Dated him 2 years ago right before he met Victoria. He strangled her unconscious. She nearly died. He paid her $200,000 and an NDA. Threatened to destroy her career if she talked. Victoria was crying silently. I thought I was the only one. I thought maybe I'd provoked him somehow, that I was the problem. You're not the problem, Patricia said firmly. He is. And now we can prove he's a serial abuser. The DA can't ignore this. Daniel's mind raced. Won't the NDAs prevent them from testifying? NDAs don't cover criminal activity, and they definitely don't prevent someone from testifying in a criminal trial. Alexander's lawyers will fight it, but they'll lose. Patricia's smile was sharp. These 3 women saw your video, Mr. Rivera, saw you stand up, and they decided if a stranger could be brave for Victoria, they could be brave for themselves. Daniel's throat tightened. He hadn't thought about that. Hadn't considered his actions might inspire others. Victoria reached across the table, grabbed his hand. You didn't just save me that night. You gave other women permission to speak up, to stop being ashamed, to stop protecting their abuser. Before Daniel could respond, Patricia's phone rang. She answered, listened, her face going hard. Turn on the news, now. Daniel pulled out his phone, found a news stream. His blood went cold. The headline, Janitor's dark past military discharge raises questions about mental stability. The reporter's voice, new information has surfaced about Daniel Rivera, the janitor who assaulted security guards at a Chicago charity gala. Military records show Rivera was medically discharged from the Army Rangers following a traumatic incident overseas. Sources close to the case suggest Rivera may be suffering from untreated PTSD, raising questions about his fitness as a parent and his motivations for intervening in Alexander Ashford's private affairs. Daniel's hands shook. They're twisting everything. My discharge was honorable. My injury was from saving lives, Patricia finished. I know, but they're making it sound like you're unstable, dangerous. This is classic Ashford playbook. If they can't win on facts, they destroy credibility. Victoria's voice was small. This is my fault. If I hadn't asked you to help... Don't. Daniel's voice was sharp. Don't take responsibility for his actions. You didn't do this. He did. Patricia was already on her phone typing furiously. I'm releasing your military records. The real ones. The commendations. The lives saved. The honorable discharge. We're going on offense. But Daniel barely heard her. His phone was buzzing with calls from reporters from Maya's school from people he didn't know. Then, a call from Maya herself. "Dad?" Her voice was shaking. "Dad, kids at school are saying you're crazy, that you have PTSD, that you're dangerous. One girl's mom called the principal saying I shouldn't be allowed in class because you're unstable." Daniel closed his eyes. "Baby, none of that is true." "I know, but they're saying it anyway, and Mr. Peterson pulled me out of class to ask if I felt safe at home. If you ever got violent, if I wanted to talk to a counselor." She was crying now. "Dad, they think you're going to hurt us." "I would never. I know, but they don't know, and they're treating me like I'm some victim who needs to be rescued from you." Daniel wanted to punch something, wanted to scream, wanted to make Alexander Ashford feel one fraction of the pain he was causing. But instead, he took a breath and kept his voice steady. "Maya, listen to me. This is going to get worse before it gets better. But I need you to be strong. Can you do that?" "I don't want to be strong. I want this to be over." "I know, baby. I know. But we're doing the right thing. Mom would be proud of us." Silence. Then, "Are you sure? Because right now it feels like doing the right thing just makes everything terrible." The question gutted him. Because she was right. Doing the right thing had cost him his job, his reputation, his daughter's peace of mind. What kind of lesson was that? But then he thought about Victoria, about her babies who would be born safe instead of into a home where their father was a monster, about the 3 women who'd found their voices, about all the future victims who might be spared because someone finally stopped Alexander Ashford. "Yes," he said firmly. "I'm sure. Sometimes right is hard, but it's still right." After he hung up, Patricia was watching him with something like respect. "That's the man I want on the stand. Unshakable, certain, clear." "I don't feel unshakable. None of us do. But you fake it until it's real." She pulled up another document. "The DA just called. They're filing charges. Assault and battery. Domestic violence. Witness intimidation based on your police report." Victoria gasped. "They're really doing it." "They're really doing it. Arraignment is day after tomorrow. He'll post bail, but he'll be arrested first. Mugshot, fingerprints, the works." Daniel felt a surge of something he hadn't felt in days. Hope. But Patricia wasn't done. "There's something else. The FBI called." The room went silent. "FBI," Daniel repeated. "Alexander Ashford's business practices. Predatory lending. Displacement of low-income families. Potential fraud. They've been investigating for months but didn't have enough to move forward. Until now." What changed? Public pressure. Media attention. 3 ex-girlfriends testifying about his character. And Patricia hesitated. An employee who came forward with documents. Victoria's face went white. What kind of documents? Financial records. Emails. Proof that Alexander systematically targeted vulnerable families, bought their properties for pennies on the dollar, then evicted them. Hundreds of families, maybe thousands. All legal technically, but deeply unethical. Who's the employee? Someone who saw the video of him hitting you and couldn't stay silent anymore. Someone who said if a janitor could risk everything for what's right, they could too. Daniel's head was spinning. What had started as one moment 5 words, "Don't touch her again," was becoming something massive, something he couldn't control. "This is bigger than me now," he said quietly. "Yes?" Patricia agreed. "It's a movement. People are tired of watching powerful men get away with everything. They're tired of being bystanders. You gave them permission to act." Daniel's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him. "Mr. Rivera." A woman's voice, young, scared. "My name is Tasha Williams. I'm calling because I was raped by Alexander Ashford 3 years ago." Daniel's blood went cold. He put the phone on speaker so Patricia and Victoria could hear. "I worked for his company. executive assistant. He called me to his office late one night, said there was an urgent project. When I got there, her voice broke. He forced himself on me, told me if I reported it, he'd destroy my career, make sure I never worked in Chicago again. So I stayed quiet, took a settlement, signed an NDA, tried to forget. Patricia was already recording, taking notes. Then I saw the video of him hitting his pregnant wife, and I realized he's never going to stop unless someone stops him. So I'm breaking my NDA. I'm willing to testify, to press charges, to do whatever it takes. Victoria was sobbing now. I'm so sorry. God, I'm so sorry you went through that. Don't apologize for him. Tasha said, her voice strengthening. He did it. He's responsible, and I'm not staying quiet anymore. After Tasha hung up, the room was silent. The weight of what they were facing settled over them like a physical thing. He's not just an abuser, Daniel said quietly. He's a predator. How many others are there? We're about to find out, Patricia said. I'm setting up a hotline for anyone who has information about Alexander Ashford's criminal activity, abuse, sexual assault, business fraud, anything, and I'm betting the calls won't stop. She was right. By the end of the day, 17 more people had called, 5 more women claiming abuse, 3 claiming sexual assault, 9 employees with evidence of business fraud. The story was exploding beyond anything Daniel had imagined. News vans camped outside Alexander's office building. Protesters gathered with signs, "Justice for Victoria," and "Millionaires aren't above the law," and "I believe survivors." That evening, Daniel sat with Maya and Sophie, trying to explain what was happening. "Dad, the news is calling you a hero again," Sophie said, her tablet showing an article, "One man's courage inspires dozens to speak up." "I'm not a hero." "Yes, you are," Maya said firmly. "Maybe you didn't mean to start all this, but you did. And now all these people are finally getting justice because you were brave first." Daniel pulled them both close. "I'm sorry you're going through this. The bullying, the stress, all of it." "We're okay," Maya said. "We're Riveras. We're strong." "You sound like your mother." "Good. Mom was the strongest person I knew." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep again. He stood at the window watching the street below. A car had been parked there for 3 hours. Dark sedan. Tinted windows. He couldn't see inside, but he knew someone was watching. Alexander's people. Keeping tabs. Making sure Daniel knew he was being monitored. His phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. "You're making a big mistake. Last chance to back down before things get really ugly." Daniel deleted it without responding. He was done being intimidated. The next morning brought news that made Daniel's heart stop. Maya's school called. "Mr. Rivera, there's been an incident. Maya was in a physical altercation with another student. We need you to come in immediately." Daniel's hands shook as he drove to the school. Maya had never been in a fight. Never. She was the peacemaker, the responsible one, the girl who diffused conflicts. Principal Peterson met him at the door, face grim. "Mr. Rivera." Maya punched a classmate, broke his nose. "What?" Maya would never. "The other student made comments about your situation, called your wife derogatory names, said you were a violent criminal." Maya told him to stop. He didn't. She hit him. Daniel didn't know whether to be proud or horrified. "Where is she?" Maya sat in the principal's office, knuckles scraped, face defiant. When she saw Daniel, her defiance crumbled. "I'm sorry, Dad. I know I shouldn't have hit him, but he kept saying terrible things about Mom, about you, about Mrs. Ashford, and I couldn't let him." Daniel knelt in front of her. "Baby, I know it's hard, but violence isn't—" "Don't." Maya's voice was sharp. "Don't tell me violence isn't the answer when you physically took down 2 security guards. Don't tell me to walk away when you didn't walk away. You taught me to stand up for what's right. That's what I did." She was right. God help him, she was right. He'd taught her by example that sometimes you fight back, and now she was fighting back the only way a 12-year-old knew how. "You're suspended for 3 days," Principal Peterson said. "And the other students' parents are considering pressing charges." "Charges?" Daniel's voice went cold. "For defending herself against harassment. For assault, Mr. Rivera, just like you're being accused of." The parallel wasn't lost on Daniel. Father and daughter both accused of assault for standing up to bullies. "Let them press charges," Daniel said. "We'll see them in court." He took Maya home. Sophie was at a friend's house. Thank God at least one daughter was having a normal day. Maya went straight to her room, slammed the door. Daniel gave her 30 minutes, then knocked softly. "Go away." "Not happening." He entered. Maya was on her bed crying into her pillow. Daniel sat beside her, said nothing, just waited. Finally, "I hate this. I hate that kid for what he said. I hate Alexander Ashford for making our lives hell. I hate that Mom isn't here to help us through this. I hate all of it." "I know. Do you? Because you seem fine. You seem like you have it all figured out. But I'm 12 and my life is falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it." Daniel pulled her close, even though she resisted. "I don't have it figured out. I'm terrified every second of every day. Terrified I'm making the wrong choice. Terrified I'm hurting you girls. Terrified Alexander will win, and Victoria will go back to him, and all of this will be for nothing." Maya looked up at him. "Then why keep fighting?" "Because the alternative is worse. The alternative is teaching you that powerful people always win, that abuse has no consequences, that good people should stay quiet to stay safe. I can't teach you that. Your mother wouldn't want me to teach you that." "But we're suffering." "Yes, and I'm sorry. So sorry." His voice broke. "But maybe suffering for something that matters is better than being comfortable while pretending we don't see injustice." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "The kid said Mom was a stupid woman who got herself killed by staying with an abuser. He said she was weak." Daniel's vision went red. He understood why Maya hit him. He wanted to hit him too. "Your mother was the strongest person I've ever known. She survived abuse, rebuilt her life, created a family, dedicated herself to helping others, and she was murdered by a man who couldn't accept that she'd escaped him. That's not weakness. That's—" His voice caught. "That's heroism. And anyone who says different is wrong." Maya hugged him tight. "I won't hit anyone else, I promise." "I appreciate that, but I also won't tell you to stay silent when someone disrespects your mother's memory. There are other ways to fight, better ways, but I understand why you did what you did." That afternoon, news broke that sent shockwaves through Chicago. Alexander Ashford had been arrested, handcuffed in his office building lobby. Perp walked through a crowd of cameras and reporters, his face purple with rage and humiliation. The charges: felony assault, domestic violence, witness intimidation, criminal threatening. Bail was set at $5 million. He posted it within 2 hours. But the damage was done. The images of Alexander in handcuffs spread faster than the original video. His empire was crumbling, stock prices plummeting, partners distancing themselves, clients pulling contracts. Victoria called Daniel, crying with relief. They arrested him. He's finally facing consequences. "How are you? How are the babies?" "We're okay. Patricia has me in a safe house, security guards. Nobody knows where I am." "But Daniel," her voice dropped, "I'm scared. What if he makes bail and comes after me?" "He already made bail, but you have protection and restraining orders, and those didn't protect your wife." The words hit like a fist. Because she was right. Protection orders hadn't protected Elena, and they might not protect Victoria either. "You're not alone," Daniel said firmly. "Elena was alone. You have lawyers, guards, People watching. If he comes near you, we'll know immediately. What if that's not enough? Daniel didn't have an answer. Because what if it wasn't enough? What if Alexander slipped past security? What if history repeated itself and another woman died because the system failed to protect her? Then we keep fighting, he said, though the words felt hollow. We don't give up. We don't let fear win. But that night alone in his apartment, Daniel let himself imagine the worst. What if Alexander succeeded in hurting Victoria? What if the babies died? What if this whole thing was just another tragedy that ended with a funeral and a news cycle that moved on? His phone buzzed. Patricia. Turn on the news, now! Daniel grabbed the remote. The headline made his breath catch, breaking FBI raids. Alexander Ashford's business offices. Dozens of federal agents seize documents. The footage showed FBI agents carrying boxes out of Ashford properties. Federal prosecutors giving statements. The scope of the investigation expanding from domestic abuse to federal crimes. Patricia's voice on the phone. They found everything. Fraud, tax evasion, money laundering. Alexander Ashford isn't just facing assault charges anymore. He's facing decades in federal prison. Daniel sat down hard. How? The employee who came forward had everything. Every dirty deal. Every illegal transaction. Every time Alexander used his company to hurt vulnerable people. It's all documented. Who was the employee? His COO, Michael Santos. Worked with Alexander for 10 years. Apparently, he's been documenting everything, waiting for the right moment to bring him down. Your video was that moment. Santos. The name triggered something in Daniel's memory. Santos. Ricardo Santos. Elena's murderer. Patricia is Michael Santos related to Ricardo Santos. Pause. How did you know? Daniel's hands went numb. Ricardo Santos killed my wife. Michael is his brother. I'm looking at his statement now. He says, God, Daniel, he says watching you stand up for Victoria reminded him of how nobody stood up for Elena, how his brother destroyed an innocent woman and got away with it. He says he couldn't let another abuser win, that he owed it to Elena's memory to stop Alexander. Daniel couldn't breathe, couldn't process. Ricardo Santos's brother had taken down Alexander Ashford to honor Elena's memory. He wants to meet you, Patricia continued. He said he has something to give you, something that belonged to Elena. Daniel's world tilted. 5 years of grief and rage and guilt, and now this. The brother of the man who'd killed his wife was responsible for bringing down the man who'd nearly killed Victoria. When, he managed. Tomorrow, if you're willing. Daniel closed his eyes. Saw Elena's face, her smile, her courage, her determination to help others even when she couldn't save herself. Yes, he whispered. I'll meet him. Because maybe, just maybe, some good could come from tragedy. Maybe Elena's death hadn't been meaningless. Maybe her story had inspired someone else to be brave, to do what nobody had done for her. Maybe that was enough. Michael Santos didn't look like his brother. Ricardo had been tall, muscular, intimidating. Michael was shorter, slighter, with tired eyes that held too much regret. They met at a coffee shop in a neutral neighborhood, Patricia present as witness and protection. Michael's hands shook as he held his coffee cup. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. My brother killed your wife, and I've carried that shame for 5 years. Daniel's jaw was tight. Why did you want to meet? Because I need you to understand something. When Ricardo got out of prison early, I tried to stop him from contacting Elena. I called the police. I called his parole officer. Nobody listened. Nobody cared. And then he killed her. Michael's voice broke. I was at your wife's funeral. In the back. You never saw me. But I watched you hold your daughters while they cried, and I thought I could have stopped this. If I'd tried harder. Been braver. So you documented Alexander Ashford's crimes for 10 years, waiting for a moment to be brave. Yes. Michael pulled an envelope from his jacket. After Elena died, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About how many abusers get away with it because nobody stands up. So when I saw Alexander hitting Victoria, saw you step in when nobody else would, I knew it was time. I gave the FBI everything. He slid the envelope across the table. Daniel's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a bracelet. Silver. Delicate. With a small charm that said, strong. Daniel's breath caught. This was Elena's. I gave it to her on our first anniversary. She wore it every day. The police said it wasn't recovered from the crime scene. Ricardo took it, kept it like a trophy. I found it in his apartment after he went back to prison. I've been holding on to it, waiting to find a way to return it to you. To tell you I'm sorry. To tell you that Elena's story mattered. That it inspired me to finally do something right. Daniel closed his fist around the bracelet. 5 years. 5 years of thinking this piece of Elena was lost forever. And now it was back, delivered by the brother of her killer. Why now? Daniel asked, his voice rough. Because watching you risk everything for a stranger reminded me that I'd risked nothing for my own sister-in-law. Elena deserved someone to fight for her. I failed her. But maybe helping take down Alexander Ashford is a start at making amends. You can't make amends for your brother's crime. I know. But I can try to stop other men like him. That's what the documents will do. Alexander will spend decades in prison. The families he displaced will get justice. The women he abused will see consequences. Because of evidence I gathered. Evidence I had the courage to hand over, because you showed me what courage looks like. Daniel stared at the man across from him. The brother of his wife's killer. A man who'd chosen to be better than his family. To honor Elena's memory by stopping another abuser. Thank you, Daniel said finally. For the bracelet, for the documents, for caring when you didn't have to. Michael's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. For everything. For Elena. For not stopping my brother. For... Stop. Daniel's voice was firm, but not unkind. You're not responsible for your brother's choices. He is. But you are responsible for yours. And you chose right. Elena would appreciate that. After Michael left, Patricia touched Daniel's shoulder. Are you okay? I don't know. He looked at the bracelet. 5 years I've wondered what happened to this. Why the police never found it? And now I know. Ricardo took it because he wanted to take everything from her, even in death. But you have it back now, and Michael's documents are taking everything from Alexander. There's poetry in that. Painful poetry. The best kind usually is. That evening, Daniel showed Maya and Sophie the bracelet. Maya's eyes widened. That's Mom's, I remember it. She never took it off. She was wearing it the day she died, Daniel said quietly. Ricardo took it. Michael Santos, his brother, returned it to me today. Sophie touched the bracelet gently. Can I wear it sometimes to remember her? Daniel's throat closed. Yes, baby. We can all wear it. Take turns. Keep her close. They sat together on the couch, passing the bracelet between them, each holding a piece of Elena for a moment. It wasn't healing. Nothing could heal that wound completely, but it was something. A tangible connection to the woman they'd lost. Daniel's phone rang. Patricia again. The preliminary hearing is tomorrow, 9 a.m. Victoria's testifying. Alexander's attorneys are going to try to tear her apart. We need you there. Your presence matters to her. I'll be there. Daniel, they're going to attack you too. Use you to discredit her. Say she's in love with you, that this is all a ploy to leave her marriage and be with her rescuer. It's going to get ugly. I can handle ugly. Can your daughters? Daniel looked at Maya and Sophie, both still holding Elena's bracelet. They're stronger than people think. The next morning, Daniel dressed in the only suit he owned, bought for Elena's funeral, worn only twice since. Maya and Sophie stayed with Mrs. Chen. He took 3 buses to the courthouse, arrived to find reporters everywhere. Mr. Rivera, are you in love with Victoria Ashford? Mr. Rivera, is it true you're seeking a book deal? Mr. Rivera, what do you say to accusations you're exploiting this situation? He pushed through without answering, found Patricia inside. She handed him papers. Alexander's attorneys filed a motion to exclude your testimony, claiming you're biased, seeking fame, have ulterior motives. The judge denied it, but it shows how desperate they are. The courtroom was packed. Media, victims, supporters. Daniel sat in the back. Victoria entered through a side door, 7 months pregnant, moving carefully. She wore a simple dress, no makeup to hide the fading bruises. She looked small and vulnerable and absolutely terrified. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Daniel nodded once. You can do this. Alexander entered in an expensive suit flanked by 3 lawyers. He looked confident, smug, like this was an inconvenience, not a reckoning. Judge Helen Morrison, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharper eyes, called the court to order. This is a preliminary hearing to determine if sufficient evidence exists to proceed to trial on charges of felony assault, domestic violence, and witness intimidation. Mrs. Ashford, you may take the stand. Victoria's hand shook as she was sworn in. The prosecutor, a woman named Jennifer Walsh, approached gently. Mrs. Ashford, can you describe what happened on the night of February 14th at the Crystal Pavilion? Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. My husband hit me. I fell. I was 7 months pregnant with twins. Can you speak up, please? Victoria took a breath. Louder now. My husband, Alexander Ashford, struck me across the face at a charity gala. In front of 400 people. I fell. I thought I was going to lose my babies. Had he hit you before? Objection. Alexander's lead attorney, a man named Robert Hutchinson, stood. Relevance. Goes to pattern of behavior, Your Honor. Walsh countered. I'll allow it. Answer the question, Mrs. Ashford. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. Yes, many times, for 3 years, since we got married. Can you give examples? He pushed me down the stairs when I was 4 months pregnant, told the hospital I tripped. He threw a glass at my head that shattered on the wall. He choked me until I passed out because I questioned one of his business deals. Her voice was stronger now, anger replacing fear. He threatened that if I ever left, he'd take the babies, that I'd never see them, that nobody would believe me over him. Why didn't you report it? I tried, 6 months ago. I went to a police station, filed a report. 2 hours later, it disappeared. Alexander's lawyer showed up. Alexander donated $50,000 to the Police Benevolent Fund the next day. Murmurs in the courtroom. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Mrs. Ashford, do you have any evidence of this alleged abuse? Victoria nodded. 18 months of documentation. Videos, audio recordings, photos, medical records, journals, everything. Walsh played video clips on a large screen. The courtroom watched in horrified silence as Alexander screamed at Victoria, threw objects, grabbed her throat. His voice on audio. I could kill you right now, and nobody would care. You're nothing without me. Photos of bruises. Hospital records showing 3 separate injuries, all explained as accidental falls. Even Alexander's lawyers looked uncomfortable. Then Hutchinson stood for cross-examination. His voice was sharp, attacking. Mrs. Ashford, isn't it true you've been having an affair with Daniel Rivera? Victoria's eyes widened. What? No? You asked him to ride in the ambulance with you. You refused your husband's presence. You've been in constant contact with Mr. Rivera since that night. Calls, texts, meetings. He's been supporting me as a witness. As more than a witness. I'd argue, you've developed feelings for him. This entire case is a fabrication designed to leave your husband and pursue a relationship with Mr. Rivera. That's absurd. Is it Mr. Rivera lost his wife 5 years ago? He's lonely. You're vulnerable. He sees you as a replacement for the wife he couldn't save. You see him as your knight in shining armor. This isn't about abuse. It's about two damaged people finding each other and destroying an innocent man in the process. Victoria was crying now. Alexander isn't innocent. He hit me in front of hundreds of people. There's video. Video that could be interpreted many ways. Perhaps you provoked him. Perhaps the slap was reflexive after you said something cruel. Perhaps— Your Honor. Walsh interrupted, furious. Defense is badgering the witness. Sustained. Mr. Hutchinson, get to your point. My point, Your Honor, is that Mrs. Ashford has financial and romantic motivations for these accusations. She stands to gain millions in a divorce settlement. She gets to play victim while pursuing a relationship with her rescuer. This is a convenient narrative, not reality. Judge Morrison looked at Victoria. Mrs. Ashford, do you have romantic feelings for Mr. Rivera? Victoria wiped her eyes. I have gratitude. He saved my life and my baby's lives when nobody else would. But romantic feelings, no. I barely know him. And I don't need to know him to know that what Alexander did to me was wrong. Thank you. You may step down. But Hutchinson wasn't finished. Your Honor, we'd like to call Daniel Rivera to the stand. Daniel's stomach dropped. He wasn't supposed to testify until the actual trial. This was just preliminary. Judge Morrison frowned. For what purpose? To establish his bias and credibility. If this case proceeds to trial, his testimony will be crucial. We have a right to examine him now. I'll allow it. Mr. Rivera, please approach. Daniel walked to the stand, very aware of Alexander's eyes on him. Very aware of the cameras. Very aware that whatever he said next could help or hurt Victoria. Hutchinson circled like a shark. Mr. Rivera, you're former military, correct? Yes, Army Ranger. Discharged for medical reasons. Honorable discharge. Knee injury sustained during a rescue operation. A rescue operation that also involved combat. You killed men during your service, didn't you? Objection. Walsh stood. Relevance. Goes to Mr. Rivera's propensity for violence, Your Honor. I was a soldier, Daniel said before the judge could rule. I followed orders. I protected my unit and civilians. If that's violence, then yes, I was violent. But it was legal, justified, and in service of my country. And your wife was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. Domestic violence, correct? Daniel's hands clenched. Yes. You must have felt powerless, angry, like you failed to protect her. I did fail to protect her. So when you saw Victoria Ashford being hit, you saw a chance for redemption, a chance to save the woman you couldn't save before. I saw a pregnant woman being assaulted. I intervened. You attacked 2 security guards. They grabbed me first. I defended myself using minimal force. Both walked away. Neither was seriously injured. You have combat training. You could have killed them. I could have. I didn't. That shows restraint, not violence. Hutchinson changed tactics. How much have you been paid for your testimony? Nothing. No book deals, no movie rights, no interviews for money. I've turned down every offer. I'm not here for money. Then why are you here? Daniel looked at Alexander, then at Victoria, then back at Hutchinson. Because 5 years ago my wife died because nobody was willing to truly intervene. People filed paperwork, made reports, followed procedures, but nobody actually stopped her abuser. Nobody stood between her and the man who eventually killed her. I wasn't there to do it. I was deployed. I failed her. His voice roughened. When I saw Victoria on the ground holding her pregnant belly crying, I had a choice. Walk away and let history repeat itself. Or step in and maybe, just maybe, save someone this time. I chose to step in. I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. Even though it cost you your job, your reputation, put your daughters at risk. My daughters are learning that doing right sometimes costs everything. That's a lesson worth teaching. Or they're learning that their father is a vigilante who can't control his savior complex. Objection. Walsh was on her feet again. Badgering. Withdrawn. Hutchinson smirked. No further questions. Daniel stepped down, his hands shaking with suppressed rage. He'd expected attack, but having his motivations twisted, his daughters questioned his service, weaponized. It was worse than he'd imagined. Judge Morrison called for a recess. Daniel found Patricia in the hallway. "You did great," she said. "He tried to rattle you and you stayed calm, truthful, that matters. Did I help or hurt her case? You helped. The jury, if this goes to trial, will see you as credible, honest, someone with nothing to gain." But Daniel wasn't sure. He'd watched Hutchinson plant seeds of doubt. The affair angle, the savior complex, the idea that this was all an elaborate lie. Would a jury believe Victoria, or would they believe Alexander's expensive lawyers? The hearing resumed. Walsh called Detective Martinez to testify about the investigation. Then the paramedics who'd treated Victoria. Then the 3 ex-girlfriends who'd come forward. Each testimony painted the same picture. Alexander Ashford was a serial abuser who used his wealth to silence victims. But Hutchinson fought hard, questioned every detail, suggested the ex-girlfriends were lying for money, implied the video evidence was taken out of context, made it sound like Alexander was the real victim, a successful man being destroyed by vengeful women, and a vigilante with a savior complex. Finally, Judge Morrison made her ruling. "I've reviewed the evidence, video documentation, medical records, witness testimony, prior complaints, pattern of behavior." She looked directly at Alexander. "Mr. Ashford, I find sufficient evidence to bind you over for trial on all charges: felony assault, domestic violence, witness intimidation." Alexander's face went purple. He leaned to whisper something to Hutchinson. "Furthermore," Judge Morrison continued, "I'm modifying your bail conditions. You are to have no contact with Mrs. Ashford, Mr. Rivera, or any witnesses in this case. You will surrender your passport. You will check in with pretrial services weekly. Any violation will result in remand to custody. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." Alexander's voice was tight with controlled rage. "Trial is set for 6 weeks from today. Court is adjourned." As people filed out, Victoria found Daniel in the hallway. She grabbed his hand. "Thank you for testifying, for being here, for everything. You were incredibly brave up there. I was terrified. Brave people usually are." She smiled slightly. "The babies kicked during my testimony, like they were saying, 'You can do this, Mom.' What are you going to name them?" "I've been thinking about that. The girl, I want to name her Elena, after your wife, the woman whose story gave me courage." Daniel's throat closed completely. He couldn't speak. "Is that okay?" Victoria asked anxiously. "I don't want to overstep." "It's perfect," he managed. "Elena would be honored." They stood together for a moment, 2 people connected by tragedy and violence, and the choice to fight back. Then Victoria's security team arrived to take her back to the safe house. Patricia approached Daniel. "The FBI wants to meet with you." Michael Santos's documents exposed more than just Alexander's business crimes. There are indications of connections to organized crime, money laundering for drug cartels. The investigation is expanding. How much trouble is Alexander in? If the feds get what they think they'll get, he'll never see freedom again. Daniel should have felt satisfaction. Instead, he just felt tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of lawyers and courtrooms and media. Tired of watching his daughters suffer for his choice. His phone buzzed. Maya. "Dad, come home. Now. Something's happened." His blood went cold. "What, are you okay?" "We're okay, but just come home, please." Daniel ran, took a cab he couldn't afford, burst into his apartment 20 minutes later to find Maya Sophie and Mrs. Chen standing in his living room staring at a box on the coffee table. "What is that?" "It was delivered an hour ago," Mrs. Chen said, her voice shaking. "No return address, just your name." Daniel approached carefully, opened the box. Inside was a dead rat and a note in printed letters: "Snitches get stitches. Back off, or your daughters get worse." Sophie was crying. Maya was trying to be brave, but her hands shook. "I'm calling the police," Daniel said immediately. "We already did," Maya said. "They took photos, said they'd increase patrols. But Dad," her voice broke, "I'm scared. What if he really hurts us?" Daniel pulled both girls close. "He won't, I promise." "You can't promise that. You couldn't protect Mom. How can you protect us?" The words hit like bullets. Maya's face went white, realizing what she'd said. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I didn't mean—" "You're right," Daniel said quietly. "I couldn't protect your mother. I failed her. And I've been terrified every day since that I'll fail you too. That my choices will cost you everything. That Alexander will hurt you to hurt me." "Then why are we doing this?" Maya's voice was desperate. "Why don't we just change our names, start over somewhere he can't find us?" "Because running teaches you that bullies win, that you have no power, that doing right doesn't matter if the cost is too high." Daniel held her face gently. "Your mother didn't die so we could learn to be scared. She died fighting for other people's safety, for justice, for what's right. The worst thing we could do is let that death mean nothing. But what if we die too? Then we die standing up. But I don't think that's going to happen, because Alexander is desperate, and desperate people make mistakes. This threat, it's evidence. The police have it. His fingerprints might be on it, or his associates. Every time he lashes out, he gives us more ammunition." Patricia called again. "I heard about the threat. I'm sending private security to your apartment, round the clock. Nobody gets near your girls without going through armed guards." "I can't afford—" "It's covered. Anonymous donor. Someone who saw your story and wants to help." "Who?" "They requested anonymity. Just accept it, Daniel. Let people help you." That night, 2 security guards stationed themselves outside Daniel's apartment. It should have made him feel safer. Instead, it drove home how dangerous this had become. He lay awake listening to his daughters breathe in the next room, thinking about Elena, about the promise he'd made at her grave, about whether keeping that promise was worth putting Maya and Sophie at risk. His phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "I'm the anonymous donor paying for your security. My name is Margaret Hutchinson. I'm Robert Hutchinson's wife. My husband is defending Alexander Ashford, but I can't stay silent anymore. I was abused by my first husband. Nobody helped me. I got out only because a stranger, a grocery store clerk, saw my bruises and called the police. That stranger saved my life. You're that stranger for Victoria. I'm paying it forward. Stay strong." Daniel stared at the message. The defense attorney's wife was funding his security because she understood what Victoria was going through, because one act of courage had rippled through decades. He texted back, "Thank you. More than I can express." The response, "Thank Elena. Her story is changing minds, saving lives, making people like me brave enough to act. That's her legacy. Honor it by winning." Daniel thought about that. Elena's legacy, not her death, not her pain. Her story, the courage she'd shown in leaving Ricardo, the work she'd done helping other survivors, the love she'd given Maya and Sophie, the example she'd set. Maybe Margaret was right. Maybe winning wasn't just about Alexander going to prison. Maybe it was about showing people that abuse has consequences, that standing up matters, that one voice can inspire thousands. The next morning, Daniel woke to news that made him sit up straight. 3 more women had come forward overnight, all claiming Alexander had assaulted them, all breaking their NDAs, all willing to testify. The number was now 11. 11 women, 18 months of documented abuse with Victoria, and evidence of business crimes affecting thousands of families. Alexander Ashford's empire wasn't just crumbling, it was disintegrating. But the man himself wasn't going down without a fight. That afternoon, his attorneys held a press conference. Hutchinson stood at a podium, confident and smooth. Alexander Ashford is the victim of a coordinated campaign of character assassination. These so-called victims are seeking financial gain. Daniel Rivera is seeking fame. Victoria Ashford is seeking a meal ticket divorce. None of this is about truth. It's about destroying a successful man who threatens the mediocrity of his accusers. The words were slick, polished, designed to plant doubt. And they worked. Social media erupted with people defending Alexander, claiming false accusations, saying the women were lying, that Daniel was a fraud. Maya showed Daniel the comments, her face stricken. Dad, people are saying terrible things, that you trained Victoria to fake abuse, that the 11 women are all lying, that this is a feminist conspiracy. Daniel felt sick. How did truth get so twisted? How did video evidence and medical records and multiple witnesses become conspiracy? Patricia called. Don't read the comments. Don't engage. Let his lawyers talk. Our response is simple evidence. Let the evidence speak. But that night, Victoria called sobbing. I can't do this. The threats, the attacks. People are following me, screaming that I'm a liar. Someone threw a brick through my safe house window with a note calling me a whore. Victoria, maybe Hutchinson is right. Maybe I should just drop the charges. Take the settlement. Disappear. You can't let them win. Why not? What's the point of fighting if it destroys everyone involved? My babies deserve peace, not this war. Your babies deserve a world where their father faces consequences, where abuse isn't accepted, where women don't have to stay silent to stay safe. That world doesn't exist, Daniel. It's fantasy. Then we create it, one fight at a time, one testimony at a time, one refusal to back down at a time. Long silence. Then, I'm so tired. I know, me too. But we're almost there. 6 weeks until trial. We can survive 6 weeks. Can we, or will Alexander destroy us first? Daniel didn't have an answer, because he wondered the same thing every night. How much more could they endure before something broke? Before someone got hurt? Before the cost became too high? But giving up meant Elena died for nothing. Meant Victoria would go back to her abuser. Meant Alexander would win. And Daniel had promised at Elena's grave to himself, to his daughters, that he would never look away again, even if keeping that promise cost him everything. The 6 weeks before trial felt like 6 years. Daniel lived in a constant state of hypervigilance, checking doors, watching shadows walking Maya and Sophie to school, with security guards trailing behind. The girls were resilient, but he could see the toll. Maya was quieter. Sophie cried more easily. Both jumped at sudden noises. 3 weeks before trial, Victoria went into early labor. False alarm, thank God, but it reminded everyone what was at stake. 2 innocent babies who deserved to be born into safety, not chaos. 2 weeks before trial, Alexander's legal team made one final settlement offer. Hutchinson called Patricia directly. Drop all charges, sign NDAs. Victoria gets $10 million and full custody. Rivera gets $5 million and the lawsuit disappears. Everyone walks away clean. Patricia put him on speaker so Daniel and Victoria could hear. That's a lot of money, Patricia said carefully. Why so generous? Because Mr. Ashford wants this to end. The publicity is damaging his business. He's willing to pay for peace. Or he's terrified he'll lose at trial, Daniel said flatly. Mr. Rivera, always a pleasure. Hutchinson's voice was oily. You should know we have evidence you've been meeting with Victoria privately, without attorney present. Some might call that inappropriate. We've met in public places with security present. There's nothing inappropriate. Perception is reality in court. A jury might see a lonely widower and a vulnerable woman who've become close. Too close. It could undermine your credibility. Victoria spoke up, her voice stronger than Daniel had heard in weeks. Tell Mr. Ashford no settlement, no NDA. We're going to trial. Mrs. Ashford, consider your children. I am considering them. I'm considering that they'll grow up knowing their mother was brave enough to stand up to their father. That she didn't let money silence truth. Tell Alexander he can keep his 10 million. I'll see him in court. She hung up, looked at Daniel with tears in her eyes but fire in her voice. I'm done being scared. Good, Patricia said, smiling. Because we just won this case. How? He blinked, offered money. That's an admission of guilt. Juries hate it when defendants try to buy their way out. We'll use it at trial. The trial began on a Monday morning in May. The courtroom was packed, media supporters, protesters both for and against Alexander. Daniel sat in the front row with Patricia. Maya and Sophie stayed home with Mrs. Chen and the security team. Judge Morrison presided again, her face stern as she addressed the jury pool. 12 citizens who would decide Alexander Ashford's fate. Opening statements began. Walsh faced the jury with quiet confidence. This case is about power and its abuse. Alexander Ashford is a billionaire, a man with resources most of us can't imagine. And he used those resources to terrorize, control, and abuse women for over a decade. You'll hear from 11 victims. You'll see video evidence, medical records, testimony from witnesses who saw him commit violence. This isn't a he said, she said case. This is a case with overwhelming proof of systematic abuse. Your job is simple. Hold a powerful man accountable. Hutchinson's opening was slick and polished. He painted Alexander as a victim of ambulance-chasing lawyers and attention-seeking women. He called Daniel a vigilante with a savior complex. He claimed Victoria was a gold digger who saw an opportunity for a payday. Daniel watched the jury. Some nodded at Hutchinson's words. Others looked skeptical. It was impossible to read which way they'd lean. The prosecution's case took 3 days. Victoria testified first calm and detailed. She walked the jury through years of abuse, showed them the videos, the photos, the medical records. Hutchinson's cross-examination was brutal. Mrs. Ashford, you claim my client abused you for 3 years, yet you stayed. Why? I was afraid. He threatened to take my children. But you had resources, education. Why not just leave? Because women who leave their abusers are 70 times more likely to be killed. I was waiting for the right moment, gathering evidence. Or you were comfortable living in luxury while planning your exit strategy. I was surviving. The 11 other women testified. Each told their story. Each described Alexander's pattern: charm, control, violence, threats, payoffs, silence. Sarah Chen broke down on the stand. He broke my wrist and then made me sign a paper saying I'd tripped. I was 23. I believed him when he said nobody would believe me. I was wrong. You have to believe us. Jennifer Martinez was angry, fierce. I spent 4 years thinking I deserved what he did to me, that I'd provoked him. But watching Victoria fight back, watching Daniel Rivera risk everything to help a stranger, it made me realize I had power too. The power to tell the truth. Rachel Thompson, the woman Alexander had strangled, spoke directly to the jury. He told me he could kill me and get away with it, because of his money, his lawyers, his connections. He said the system protects men like him. Prove him wrong, please. Tasha Williams, the woman he'd raped, testified about the assault in detail that made several jurors look sick. I thought my career mattered more than justice. I took his money and stayed quiet. But money doesn't heal trauma. Only truth does. Then Daniel took the stand. Walsh's questions were straightforward. He described what he'd seen, what he'd done, why he'd intervened. Mr. Rivera, why didn't you just call 911 and let professionals handle it? I did call 911, but Victoria was on the ground crying, holding her pregnant belly. I wasn't going to leave her alone with a man who'd just hit her while we waited for an ambulance. Some have called your actions heroic. What do you call them? I call them bare minimum. The least any decent person should do when they see someone being hurt. Hutchinson's cross-examination tried to paint Daniel as unstable fame-seeking, projecting his dead wife onto Victoria. But Daniel stayed calm, answered every question with quiet dignity. "Mr. Rivera, you lost your wife to domestic violence. Doesn't that make you biased against my client?" "It makes me informed. I know what happens when people look away, when the system fails, when abusers aren't stopped. My wife died because of that failure. I won't let it happen again if I can help it." "But you're not a police officer, not a social worker. You're a janitor with combat training and frankly anger issues." "I don't have anger issues. I have a conscience. There's a difference." The prosecution rested after 4 days. Then the defense began. Alexander took the stand, confident and self-assured. He denied everything. Called the videos taken out of context. Claimed the injuries were accidents. Said the women were lying for money. "I loved Victoria," he said, looking directly at the jury. "I gave her everything, a home, security, a family, and she repaid me by having an affair with a janitor and concocting this elaborate lie." "There's no affair," Walsh objected. "Withdrawn," Hutchinson said smoothly. But the seed was planted. Several jurors looked at Daniel, then Victoria, calculating. The defense called character witnesses, business partners who said Alexander was tough but fair, and society friends who said he was generous and kind, a priest who said Alexander donated to charity. But then Walsh's rebuttal destroyed them all. "Did you know Alexander was being investigated by the FBI for fraud?" "No." "Did you know he'd paid off 11 women to silence abuse allegations?" "No." "Did you know he threatened witness Daniel Rivera's children?" "No." Each witness crumbled under cross-examination. They'd only known Alexander's public face, not his private violence. The trial's 8th day brought a twist nobody expected. FBI agent Marcus Coleman took the stand as a surprise witness. "Agent Coleman, what can you tell us about Alexander Ashford's business practices?" "We've been investigating Mr. Ashford for 18 months. Based on evidence provided by a whistleblower, we've uncovered systematic fraud, money laundering, and connections to organized crime." The courtroom erupted. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. "Mr. Ashford used his real estate company to displace low-income families, then laundered money through the properties. We estimate over 3,000 families were illegally evicted. Millions in fraudulent transactions." Hutchinson objected. "This is beyond the scope of this trial." "It goes to character, Your Honor," Walsh argued. "Shows a pattern of using power to hurt vulnerable people." "I'll allow it." Agent Coleman continued. "We also discovered Mr. Ashford hired private investigators to stalk and intimidate witnesses in this case, including sending threats to Daniel Rivera's minor children." Alexander's face went white. Hutchinson whispered urgently to him. "We have evidence linking Mr. Ashford to the dead rat delivered to Mr. Rivera's home. His fingerprints were on the box. His credit card paid the delivery service." The jury looked horrified. Even those who'd seemed sympathetic to Alexander now looked revolted. That night, Patricia called Daniel. "We've won. The FBI testimony sealed it. The jury saw him for what he is, a predator who uses money and power to hurt people." "Don't jinx it." "I'm not jinxing it. I'm reading jury body language. They've made up their minds." Closing arguments came on day 10. Walsh was powerful and direct. Alexander Ashford believed he was untouchable, that his billions made him above the law, that he could hit his pregnant wife in front of 400 people and face no consequences. He was wrong. You 12 people have the power to prove that violence has consequences, that wealth doesn't excuse abuse, that women deserve protection and justice. Don't let him buy his way out. Hold him accountable. Hutchinson's closing was desperate grasping. He attacked Victoria's character, Daniel's motives, the other victims' credibility. But his voice lacked conviction. He knew he'd lost. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Daniel waited in the hallway with Victoria, Patricia, and the other victims. None of them spoke much. There was nothing left to say. When the court clerk called them back, Daniel's heart hammered so hard he thought it might explode. The jury foreman stood. Judge Morrison asked the question everyone had been waiting for. On the charge of felony assault, how do you find guilty? Victoria grabbed Daniel's hand, tears streaming. On the charge of domestic violence, how do you find guilty? Sarah Chen sobbed with relief. On the charge of witness intimidation, how do you find guilty? Alexander's face went from red to purple. He leaned to Hutchinson, hissing something. On the charge of criminal threatening, how do you find guilty? The courtroom erupted in applause. Judge Morrison didn't stop it this time. She let the victims have their moment. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Judge Morrison looked at Alexander with undisguised contempt. Mr. Ashford, you used your wealth and power to terrorize women for over a decade. You believed yourself above the law, above consequences, above basic human decency. You were wrong. She paused, letting the words sink in. On the assault charges, 5 years. On the domestic violence charges, 7 years. On the witness intimidation, 3 years. On the criminal threatening, 2 years. To run consecutively. Total sentence, 17 years in federal prison. No parole eligibility for 12 years. Alexander stood frozen, unable to process. 17 years. He'd be 70 when he got out. Furthermore, you will pay restitution to all 11 victims. Total amount to be determined, but estimated at $15 million. You will surrender all assets pending civil litigation. You are remanded to custody immediately. Federal marshals approached. Put handcuffs on Alexander Ashford. Led him away as he screamed about appeals and incompetent lawyers and injustice. Outside the courthouse, Victoria gave a statement to the media, Daniel standing beside her. Justice doesn't always win, but today it did. Because one man refused to look away, because 11 women found their voices, because a jury believed us. She looked at Daniel. Mr. Rivera gave me something I'd lost hope. Hope that good people still exist, that courage matters, that standing up changes things. She placed her hand on her belly. My babies will be born into a world where their father is in prison. Some might say that's sad. I say it's the greatest gift I could give them, safety. And they'll grow up knowing that their mother fought back, that she didn't stay silent, that she was brave enough to demand justice. A reporter called out. What's next for you? I'm going to give birth, raise my children, rebuild my life, and I'm going to help other women do the same. Patricia stepped forward. We're announcing the formation of the Elena Rivera Foundation, named after Daniel Rivera's late wife who lost her life to domestic violence. The foundation will provide legal aid, safe housing, and support for abuse survivors. Funded by restitution payments from Alexander Ashford and donations from supporters worldwide. Daniel's breath caught. Elena's name, her legacy, something good born from tragedy. 3 weeks later, Victoria went into labor. Real labor this time. Daniel got the call at 2 in the morning. Daniel? It's time. The babies are coming. He met her at the hospital, paced the waiting room for 7 hours. Patricia arrived. Some of the other victims came. They waited together, this makeshift family built from trauma and courage. At 3:47 p.m., a nurse emerged. Mrs. Ashford had a healthy delivery. Boy and girl, 6 pounds each. Everyone's doing great. She's asking for Daniel Rivera. Daniel followed the nurse to Victoria's room. She lay in the hospital bed, exhausted and glowing, holding 2 tiny bundles. Meet Elena, she said, holding up the girl. And James, showing the boy. James Daniel, after the 2 men who saved us, my father James and you. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Victoria, I didn't. You did. You saved all 3 of us. She held out baby Elena. Do you want to hold her? Daniel took the tiny girl carefully, reverently. She was so small, so perfect, so alive because her mother had been brave enough to leave. Hi, Elena, he whispered. I knew another Elena once. She would have loved you." The baby yawned. Daniel's tears fell freely now. "Thank you," Victoria said quietly. "For everything. For being the first person in 3 years to treat me like I mattered." "You always mattered. I know that now, because you showed me." Daniel stayed for an hour holding both babies, marveling at how something so beautiful could emerge from such darkness. When he finally left, the sun was setting over Chicago. He took a bus home thinking about Elena. About how she'd wanted children so badly. About how she'd never gotten to hold her babies like Victoria just had. But maybe in a way Elena had saved these babies. Her story had inspired Daniel to act. Her death had given him courage to intervene. Her legacy was living on in a girl who bore her name. At home, Maya and Sophie waited with a cake they'd baked themselves. "Congratulations on the verdict," the icing read in wobbly letters. "We're proud of you, Dad," Maya said, hugging him tight. "I'm proud of you too," Daniel said. "Both of you. For being so strong through all of this." "Did Mom's legacy help?" Sophie asked. "Yes, baby. More than you know." 6 months later, the Elena Rivera Foundation officially opened. A building in downtown Chicago. Legal offices, counseling rooms, safe housing for women escaping abuse, all funded by Alexander's restitution and donations that had poured in from around the world. The opening ceremony drew hundreds. Victims, supporters, media. Daniel stood at the podium with Victoria beside him, Elena and James in a double stroller nearby. 5 years ago, my wife was murdered by her abuser. The system failed her. Nobody truly intervened. Nobody stopped him. And she died alone and scared. Daniel's voice was steady but emotional. I made a promise at her grave that I would never look away again, that I would honor her memory by standing up when others stayed silent. He looked at Victoria, at the babies, at the crowd. This foundation exists because one night I kept that promise. Because Victoria was brave enough to press charges. Because 11 women found their voices. Because a jury believed us. Because people like Margaret Hutchinson and Michael Santos chose courage over comfort. Maya and Sophie stood beside him now, wearing t-shirts that said, Elena's Legacy. My daughters taught me something through all of this. They taught me that doing right is often painful, that standing up costs something, but that the cost of staying silent is always higher. He looked at Maya. They taught me that even when you're 12 years old and suspended for punching a bully, you can still be on the right side of history. The crowd laughed. Maya blushed but smiled. This foundation is Elena's legacy, but it's also Victoria's courage. And it's every person who saw the video of me saying, "Don't touch her again," and decided they wouldn't look away either. It's a movement, a reminder that ordinary people can do extraordinary things. He pulled out Elena's bracelet, the one Michael Santos had returned. The charm that said, "Strong." My wife wore this every day. It represented what she'd survived, the strength she'd found, the courage she'd built. I'm donating it to this foundation. Every woman who walks through these doors will know you are strong, you are brave, and you are not alone. He placed the bracelet in a display case by the entrance. Below it a plaque. The Elena Rivera Foundation, for the strong who need support, for the silent who find their voice, for the scared who choose courage. The crowd applauded. Victims stepped forward to cut the ribbon. The doors opened. Women walked in, some crying, some smiling, all hopeful. Daniel watched from the sidelines, feeling Elena's presence like a warm hand on his shoulder. This was her legacy, not her death, her impact. The ripples of her courage spreading outward, saving lives she'd never meet. A year after the trial, Daniel stood at Elena's grave with Maya and Sophie. They did this every year on her birthday, brought flowers and stories and love. Mom, a lot has happened, Maya said, kneeling by the headstone. Dad helped save a lady and her babies. Alexander Ashford went to prison. The foundation with your name has helped over 200 women so far. Sophie added her flowers. And I'm not scared anymore. Well, not as much, because Dad taught us that brave people help others even when it's hard. Daniel touched the headstone. I kept my promise, Elena. I didn't look away. I stood up. And I taught our girls what you would have taught them, that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. He paused, throat tight. Victoria named her daughter after you. Elena Grace Ashford. She's beautiful, strong, exactly like you would have been as a mother. And every time I see her, I think maybe your death wasn't meaningless. Maybe it inspired something good, something that saves lives. The wind rustled the trees. A bird sang nearby. Daniel felt peace settle over him for the first time in 5 years. Not happiness, he'd never be truly happy without Elena. But peace. The knowledge that he'd honored her memory. That he'd turned tragedy into purpose. As they walked back to the car, Maya asked, Dad, do you think Mom is proud of us? Daniel looked at his daughters 13 and 9, now strong and brave and kind. He thought about Victoria and her babies safe and thriving. He thought about the 200 women whose lives had been changed by the foundation. He thought about the movement that had started with 5 words, "Don't touch her again." Yes, he said with absolute certainty. She's proud, because we didn't let fear win. We didn't let violence go unchallenged. We didn't look away when someone needed help. That's what Mom taught us. That's what we'll keep teaching others. Sophie grabbed his hand. Are you still a hero, Dad? Daniel thought about that. Hero. The word people kept using. But he'd never felt like a hero. He'd felt scared, uncertain, overwhelmed. He'd just been a man who couldn't walk away. No, baby. I'm just someone who refused to stay silent. But you know what? That's all any of us need to be. We don't need to be heroes. We just need to be willing to stand up when it matters. Even if it's hard. Especially when it's hard. They drove home together, and Daniel thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a rainy night at a bus stop 5 years ago, to a charity gala, to a courtroom, to a foundation that was changing lives. One moment of courage had started it all. One refusal to look away. 5 years after Elena's death, Daniel Rivera understood something he hadn't understood before. Grief doesn't end. Trauma doesn't disappear. But both can be transformed, channeled, used to create something good. Elena's death had been a tragedy, but her legacy was hope, courage, justice. Lives saved that would never know her name, but would benefit from her story. And sometimes that was enough. Sometimes one person choosing to stand up, one janitor saying, "Don't touch her again," could change everything. Could inspire a movement. Could save lives. Could teach children that doing right matters more than staying safe. Daniel had learned what Elena always knew. Strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up. Standing between danger and the defenseless. Refusing to let fear silence truth. And that lesson, taught at the cost of everything, and earned through fire, was the greatest gift he could give his daughters, the survivors he'd helped, and the woman whose memory burned bright in a foundation that would outlive them all. Courage is contagious. Violence has consequences. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to be a bystander. That's the legacy Elena Rivera left. That's the promise Daniel Rivera kept. And that's the lesson the world learned from a janitor, a pregnant woman, and 11 survivors who decided that silence was no longer an option. Justice isn't always pretty. It isn't always easy. But it's always worth fighting for. And Daniel Rivera would never ever look away again.